Now, the Duke and Duchess of Privacy are not going to get a welcome reception here this week after they disrespected this country, disrespected the Queen and the entire royal family.
The Shrine, and this is the crowd that has gathered just in the past sort of half an hour or so. They arrived about 3:35. A lot of them were here because of the media.
I don't like her at all. Don't come here in Australia. You don't belong here in Australia. We don't want you here.
April 14th, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry landed in Australia, nearly 8 years after their last visit in 2018. Back then, their arrival created massive excitement, crowds filled the streets, cameras flashed constantly, and the atmosphere felt electric.
Meghan! 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 Prince Harry! We love you!
I am a big fan of the royals.
We have loved Diana and adored her and respected her, and we just want to be able to see Harry because he's so much like his mum.
But this time, it was completely opposite. Before they even stepped off the plane, people had already been talking. The backlash has been building for weeks in advance. Australians were openly questioning why they were coming at all.
They are here in Australia for a visit, the first visit in almost 8 years, visiting Melbourne, Canberra and Sydney. There's been mixed response.
That Australians are outraged that, there's police being paid for, security around the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and also saying that the cost of getting tickets to see them is very expensive. So they're really watching what Australia is saying about this trip. They are saying that they're being warmly received overwhelmingly at the moment. But as we know, Janie, they're in situations where it's very controlled. They're unlikely to be heckled. It's vastly different to the last time they visited Australia in 2018.
And more importantly, what exactly they represent now after stepping away from royal duties in 2020. That question matters because the answer has clearly shifted in the public's mind over time. Many no longer see them as working royals, but as people trying to make some money for themselves. According to reports, they received a muted welcome, allegedly boycotted, with a lot of folks saying they didn't want them there at all. And that sentiment was spreading.
Can I be honest and tell you I really don't think about them at all? I think it's probably really nice for them to not have to do all the royal stuff. But yeah, I guess that also means that they're not as sort of relevant, I guess, here.
They're very much about self-promotion. They'd probably be my least favourite royals, let's put it that way.
So now ask yourself this. If people were already pushing back before they arrived, what did Meghan and Harry expect to happen? Because despite all that noise, they still made the trip, and that decision changed everything. Now fast forward to their arrival, and this is where perception meets reality in real time. The camera showed the usual visuals: smiles, handshakes, controlled movements, everything resembling a royal-style visit. But look closer, and the energy didn't match from 2018 at all. The crowds were not just smaller, they were thin, scattered, and in some places almost missing entirely. And that is not just a low turnout, it is rejection. People simply did not show up. So now the question becomes sharper. Was this a lack of interest or a deliberate choice by people to stay away? And once people start asking that question, the entire visit starts to look different.
Meghan Markle. So she's facing backlash in Australia. Aussies are signing a petition to make Meghan and Harry pay for their own security down under and any other kind of fees that come with hosting them as well. Fair enough?
That's absolutely right. Why should we pay? Why should the Australians pay out of their taxes for these two to stay somewhere luxurious, to have armed guards everywhere, whatever? Not on. What they're coming for is a commercial venture.
Yeah.
It's a venture that Markle is they've got business stuff going on there, meetings. They've also got this thing where Meghan is going to go to this spa retreat and people are going to have to pay 1,400 quid.
Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, because some observers didn't just focus on who was missing. They started questioning the people who were actually there. There were growing claims that parts of the crowd felt staged, controlled, and possibly even arranged. Not organic supporters showing up naturally, but a setup designed to fill space and create visuals. And once that idea enters the conversation, everything changes instantly. Because once people believe the crowd is arranged, the entire moment loses credibility instantly. Now pause for a second, because this is where things start connecting.
Let's just get into exactly why Australians can't stand them. Because while Meghan and Harry have a very limited memory, the Australians are like elephants, or I should say crocodiles. These guys never forget. And in 2018, when Harry and Meghan were actually royal, and 6 months into their marriage, they did their first tour. Crowds of people lined up to meet her. She was even more popular. She and Harry were more popular than William and Catherine at that point. So they go out, they meet, and unfortunately for Meghan, she was overheard, and it was put in a book, Courtiers by Valentine Lowe, that she said, "Why are all these people around here? It's silly." And then she said, "I can't believe I'm not being paid for this."
This visit didn't just look different. It felt different for a reason, because this wasn't officially a royal tour, but Meghan and Harry tried to make it look like one. Public appearances, hospital visits, structured stops, everything followed the same royal blueprint. But there's one key detail that cannot be ignored. They are no longer working royals. They stepped away from that role in 2020, and that decision came with clear consequences. So now the question is, if they left that life, why recreate it now? Because this didn't just resemble a royal tour, it mirrored one almost completely. And that contradiction is what people are locking onto more than anything else. On one hand, they stepped away from royal duties, but on the other, they're still using that same structure.
Gemma, well, this is very much a non-royal royal tour. They are, of course, still to be named the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. However, it certainly doesn't have the same amount of pomp and ceremony that we saw when they last visited Australia in 2018. And there was also part of that a much more downgraded way of getting here. They arrived here just after 6:30 on a commercial jet.
Now, this is where the business angle becomes impossible to ignore. Unlike before, they are now allowed to make money from these appearances, something they could not do as working royals. That changes everything about how trips like this are viewed by the public. Because now, it's not just about presence, it's about purpose. And reports made it clear, this visit had a business element tied to promotion and brand visibility. So now the question becomes unavoidable. Was this a public visit or a strategic business move? Because the answer to that question completely changes how every moment is interpreted.
Certainly been a number of raised eyebrows here in the UK. Meghan and Harry stood back from royal duties in 2020. Now, all of a sudden, they're on a tour that very much looks like a royal one. What they can do now, what they couldn't do before, was make money. So this is very much a business trip. Meghan wanting to promote her As Ever brand and also hosting a very expensive women's retreat. They couldn't do that as working royals back in 2020.
Now let's zoom in on Melbourne, because this is where things really started to escalate. Reports describe the reaction there as mixed, but even that doesn't tell the full story. Because mixed can mean many things, and in this case, it leaned more toward indifference than excitement. Crowds were not just smaller, they lacked energy, engagement, and genuine enthusiasm. And that kind of response sends a very specific message without saying a single word. Now, let's talk about the hospital visit, because this is where the backlash intensified quickly. On the surface, it looked like a positive moment, meeting children, interacting with patients, and showing compassion publicly. But here's the problem. People didn't just accept it at face value. Critics immediately called it out as staged, controlled, and designed for optics rather than impact. Some went further, saying it felt fake, like a performance built around cameras instead of genuine care. And that's where the criticism takes a sharper turn. Because now it's not just about what they're doing, it's about whether it's real at all. So, ask yourself this. If a moment meant to show compassion gets labeled as self-promotion, what does that say? Now bring Meghan into the center of this, because the scrutiny around her became even more intense. There have been ongoing criticisms about her personal relationships, especially with her own family.
We do know now she is never going to come and see her father. That's her main thing. She's a disgusting human being. The fact is, she said that it's going to be too expensive. She can't get a pass. Yes, and they won't pay for her, so it's much too expensive. Her excuses are beyond anything you could imagine. So that's why, poor woman, she always makes herself to be the victim, and here she is again, poor me, I can't afford that sort of money.
And people have not forgotten that, no matter how much time has passed. So when she appears publicly, showing care in controlled settings, some see a contradiction. She has the time and money to fly to a different country to visit patients she doesn't know, but she does not have time or money to visit her own father in the hospital. How is that possible? The truth is, Meghan does everything for her benefit. She could not keep her mouth shut during her last visit to Australia, and people still remember everything she said last time. And her image has also changed over the years. Many interviews, deals, and constant media exposure have revealed a side of Meghan that Australians didn't know existed. This is why people who once defended them are now questioning them, and that shift didn't happen overnight.
There is a lot of anger in Australia over this week's visit by Prince Harry and Meghan. They are promoting their favorite causes and talking about life in California, but some critics don't want to hear it. They say they are just out to make money.
And now, in Australia, that shift is playing out in real time for everyone to see. Reports from the UK reflected this as well. Because from that perspective, this trip didn't just look unusual. It raised serious questions about consistency. They stepped away from royal duties, yet here they were, repeating the same format again. And that contradiction is now at the center of the entire conversation. Now think about timing, because timing makes this even more significant. This visit happened when their global reputation was already under pressure from multiple directions. From business ventures to public image, the narrative around them has been shifting for years.
To the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who touched down in Melbourne today for the first part of their whirlwind Australian tour, although I'm not going to call it a tour, okay? They're not here formally as guest of government. They're not working royals. We know that now. This is a 4-day commercial venture to milk money out of Australians, dumb enough to pay to be in a room with them. There's a little bit of charity work washing away sort of that brand image problem. But we do know that taxpayers are paying for their very hefty security costs.
And this trip was supposed to reinforce their position, not expose weaknesses. But instead, it seems to have done the opposite, amplifying concerns that were already there. Now here's the hard truth. This wasn't just a visit, it was a test of relevance, influence, and whether public support still exists at the same level. Meghan wanted to test the Australian audience for her business, and based on what people are seeing, the results are raising serious doubts.
But the UK media is really watching what Australians are saying about Harry and Meghan and saying that they are grifters. That's the reporting in Australia, and that they are using the country like an ATM. They're watching what the media down under are saying with a lot of interest.
Now let's take it one step further, because this is where the stakes really rise. When public figures expect a big reception and receive silence instead, it sends a message. And that message is not controlled by PR. It comes directly from the public itself. Because attention can be managed, but genuine support cannot be forced or manufactured. And right now, that support seems to be absent for Harry and Meghan.
Them visiting sick children, I think anyone would welcome that. But they are two royals who have disgraced themselves and they're desperate for money. And this is what this trip is all about. They want those good headlines. We know Harry is in court with his former charity centre, Barley. This is a PR exercise to try and repair their very badly damaged reputation.
So now the real question is this. Did Meghan and Harry completely misread the room? Or has the room changed so much that their approach no longer works the way it once did? And if people are already questioning authenticity, how do you rebuild trust from that point? Because this might not just be about Australia. This could be a signal of something much bigger. Can Meghan and Harry turn this around, or has public perception already shifted too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit the like and subscribe button. I will see you in the next video.